Welcome to the Careers by Jen podcast, episode 190. Today on the podcast, Jen offers you 7 tips on how to work with someone you don't like because they're stupid and lazy and insane.
You're listening to the Careers by Jen podcast with me, Jen Swanson, the podcast that helps you to get the job, love your work, and advance your career. I want to think people like me, and I know that it's impossible to be liked by everyone. This really hit home for me when I was teaching. There were some students that I just couldn't stand. And I know that there were some students who couldn't stand me, but we all had to get along. And I worked really hard as a professor, as an instructor, at being fair, especially when marking papers and supervising students. And I worked really hard at staying professional. And it was at times extremely difficult. But thankfully, I liked most of my students. It was just every once in a while, there was one that just sent me into a spin, internally, of course. So what happens if you are in a coworker situation where you have to work with someone you just don't like? Maybe they rub you the wrong way or they behave in a way that pushes your buttons. I remember working in the hospital with a nurse who used to just make me want to scream. Whenever I saw her name on the shift rotation, I just knew that I would have to exercise a whole lot of self-control to be able to remain professional on that shift because she was anything but professional. And she used to sit at the desk playing solitaire on the computer when family members were coming to me to ask for help for their loved ones, asking for a nurse and her, because she was their nurse. And instead of jumping up to help, because she was sitting right there and could hear everything they were asking, she would just ignore them and continue to play games. And I used to have to say things like, I'll have the nurse come to the room as soon as she's finished what she's working on, and other ridiculous things, which of course made it look like she was engrossed in some work-related thing, when I knew darn well that she was playing a game of solitaire and just didn't want to be bothered. Ugh. So it still riles me up. And that was years and years and years ago. So what do you do? Well, we're going to jump right into the number one thing you want to remember when you have to work with someone you don't like, right after this.
Are you procrastinating? Do you want to start a job search but aren't quite sure where to begin? Is it all just a little overwhelming? At Careers by Jen, we have a 5-day Jumpstart Your Job Search Challenge to help you get unstuck and move toward finding your dream job. Every day for 5 days, you'll receive an email to your inbox that asks you to complete one task. Every task you complete moves you closer toward your goal. The best part about this challenge is that it's absolutely free. Come over to careersbyjen.com and you'll see the 5-day Jumpstart Your Job Search Challenge on the right-hand side of the screen. Click on the image of Jen, sign up with your email address, and you'll be 5 days closer to reaching your goal. Why wait when you can get busy? Visit careersbyjen.com after this podcast.
The very first of the 7 points I'm going to offer to you today is this. Know that you can't like everyone. When my eldest kids were very little and didn't like something, they used to say, "Can't like that." There are people that you just don't like. And this is not a sign of failure on your part or something to spend a lot of time judging yourself for. You can respect someone's humanity and you can treat them with compassion from afar and be respectful and be kind and still not like them. My suggestion, therefore, is not to beat yourself up about it and to try not to judge yourself too harshly. It would be very nice if we could like everyone we meet all the time. And the reality is we don't and we can't. So keep in mind that we will be drawn to some people and repelled by others. And as long as you can keep it mostly to yourself, you should be able to work with them and remain professional with a little bit of self-awareness and some tips that I'm going to share with you. So that's the first suggestion, is to know that it's okay that you don't like everyone. My second point is this: pay attention to what your role in this is. I've said this before, and you already know this. You can only be in charge with yourself, ultimately. And so that's why self-awareness is such a key skill to develop. I always say it's a lifelong practice to develop self-awareness. And even people who are super self-aware have to work on it. One of the questions to ask yourself when you have to work with someone that you just don't like is, what is your part in it? What is your role in the relationship? Sometimes we don't like someone because they display aspects of ourselves that we don't like and that we wish we didn't have. Carl Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. That's a little freaky. So if you don't like somebody, maybe it's because they remind you of yourself in some way, or a behavior that they're doing is reminding you of something that you do. And so the idea is to look inward and see, is that person's behavior something that I do that bugs me? Is that person's behavior something I wish I had? Is it some jealousy? Is it some envy about something that person is doing or a way that person is that is irritating you because you wish you had that aspect in your own personality? It could be that as well. The idea is to take a look. What is my role in this dislike? You might be surprised at what you find. It's uncomfortable. It's not enjoyable. It's not something a lot of people take time to do, but it's really worth it, because it could be that it has nothing to do with the other person and it's all about you. The third tip for today is to keep your emotions in check. It won't do much for your professional image to throw a hissy fit or a tantrum. If you can choose to stay calm and to take a breather if you need to, and just walk away for a bit until you feel calmer inside, then maybe you can respond to the situation or to the coworker in a more productive and tactful way than if you let yourself get swept up in the tide of emotion that comes rushing in when your coworker pushes your buttons. Now, this is far easier for me to sit here and say than it is to actually do. So, and I know that. So it comes back to self-awareness. What buttons exactly does this person push? Why? And is there a way that you can respond that's new or that's different than the typical way you would respond, the automatic way that you would respond? Maybe respond with curiosity. I wonder why that drives me up the wall. I wonder why when that person does that or says that. I wonder what it triggers in me. What is that? So if you can respond with curiosity or wonder rather than with your own irritation and temper, you might learn something. If you know that you will be challenged by this behavior, it might be best to walk away until you can gain some perspective and come back to the situation later. Sometimes just even 5 minutes of getting out of the situation can give you a little bit more perspective. So that's number 3. Try to keep your emotions in check, because everyone will be looking at you if you don't. The 4th tip for you today is to take the high road. Now, this follows on the heels of keeping your emotions in check. It's really best not to resort to gossip about the person that you don't like. It's really tempting sometimes to go find someone else and say, oh, that person is making me want to throw something across the room. You know, it's tempting to go corroborate or to triangle or to bring somebody else into your pain and your misery. It's really, really tempting. But professionally, it's not a good idea to resort to gossip or to name-calling or to sarcasm or to passive-aggressive behavior. How you behave is a reflection on you and you alone. And so to give that power that you have over your own being away by simply reacting to someone you don't like and maybe behaving badly yourself as a result, that's unfortunate. That's giving the power away to that person. And that's not going to reflect well on you. It's easy to descend to that low road because emotions are strong. And it's easy to fall into gossiping or calling somebody a name or being sarcastic with a person. And the impulse to save face if they've embarrassed you, or to justify what you're doing if they've blamed you or accused you of something, the impulse to defend if you think your honor or your reputation or your image or your track record is at stake, it's strong. And even so, how you choose to respond to someone you know in your gut you can't stand is only ever a reflection of your own character and person. And retaliation is never going to look good in the workplace. So my suggestion for number 4 is take the high road. And it might look like you're not doing anything. It might look like you're not taking action. But if you can keep yourself in check and take that high road, then you're going to be better for it in the end, and you'll be more respected, and your behavior will be more admired than if you go off and do what you really want to do in the situation. All right, we're going to pause for a short break here, and when we come back, tip number 5 of the 7 that I'm offering today is one of the, I think, deep truths about this topic. We'll be right back. Do you want someone to listen? Do you need help setting goals for yourself? Do you want someone to keep you accountable for your progress and to ask good questions that will help to move you toward your success? Have you got a resume that you want reviewed or updated? Do you need help deciding what kind of work you'd like to transition into? If any of these sound like you, I've got some coaching spaces open at Careers by Jen, and I would be happy to work with you to achieve your goals. From a single session resume review to multi-session career or life coaching, there are several packages to choose from. Go to careersbyjen.com, click on online programs, and you will see the coaching packages on the courses page. Select your package and let's get started on your future today. Today I'm sharing 7 tips for working with someone you don't like, because if it hasn't happened to you yet, yay you, it's bound to before your work life is over. It could happen in your volunteer life too, really. Wherever and whenever you are working in community with other people toward a purpose, there could well be someone you encounter that you just don't like. Now, I've already said that you can't like everyone. Tip 2 was to pay attention to what your role is in that dislike, to get curious about it so that you can know yourself better. Tip 3 was to keep your emotions in check. Tip 4 was to take the high road, and tip 5 is a deep truth about relationships with other human beings, and here it is. It's not all about you. As humans, we want to make it all about us, but often a person's behavior has nothing to do with you at all, and everything to do with something that's going on internally for that person. If you choose to take everything personally, you're going to have a very sorry time of it. Now, maybe the person you don't like is rude or insensitive or lazy or has no filter or is grumpy all the time or doesn't do their job well or doesn't want to talk to you or whatever. You can just carry on. There are many, many, many things that this person might be doing. But honestly, none of these things might have anything to do with you. They may absolutely have nothing to do with you personally and everything to do with some situation or condition that the person is dealing with that you might not know anything about. Our immediate tendency is to personalize things. But until you know, without question, that the reason the person is behaving this way and why you don't like them is personal, the better call would be just to not go there, to carry on being you and to carry on being as professional as you can be when interacting with your coworker. Now, it could be that this person you don't like has no idea you don't like them. And that's what you want. You want to keep it that way. You want to be professional and do your job and be respectful of the person, etc. And the best thing would be if the person that you don't like never found out. That would be the best thing. The sixth tip for you today is to choose your battles. The reality is that we only have so much energy. You only have so much energy to devote to your co-working relationship before your own work is going to suffer. So how much time and energy are you going to invest? Maybe you've even decided to get to know this person a little better. Maybe you've tried sitting with them at lunch or invited them for coffee on a break to learn more about them. And even after that, you can't stand working with them. I tried all sorts of things with the nurse that I worked with that I told you about earlier. Everything short of reporting her because she wasn't doing anything overtly dangerous. She was being unprofessional a lot of the time. She was rude to people. She was harsh with patients. She came across as uncaring and bored, and quite possibly what she was doing was just waiting for retirement, just coasting along, hoping to retire. I don't know what it was, but I just know that everything, not everything, but much of the time, I was annoyed with her because she was behaving in a way that to me seemed unlike the way a nurse should behave. My method of coping with having to interact with her was always to be polite and as professional as I could be. But if what she was doing or not doing affected my work, that's where I set my boundary. And I would set my limits, and I would do it with assertiveness. One day she asked me to do something. I'll tell you the story. One day she asked me to double check a syringe of insulin that she had drawn up to give a patient. So she had taken the vial of insulin out of the fridge. She had drawn up the amount that she was supposed to give the patient according to the paperwork that was all right in front of her. And in our system, another registered nurse is supposed to double check with her. It has to be somebody who is qualified to give insulin, which in our case was a registered nurse. So it had to be two registered nurses double checking. And this was because insulin is a dangerous drug. And if you have too much or too little, there are serious consequences. So she was drawing up this insulin. And while I have two eyes and I'm quite capable of reading a syringe measurement, and I knew exactly what it was she was supposed to be doing because I'm the one who had transcribed the physician's order, I was not legally allowed to be the person double checking. But she asked me. And she asked me because I happened to be there walking past the medication room, and she didn't want to have to walk down to the other end of the hall to find another nurse. It was in those kinds of situations. Well, first of all, I got very mad at the fact that she would even ask me, knowing full well that I wasn't allowed to do it. But it made me mad that she was that lazy, that she wouldn't take the effort to go and do what she was supposed to do. And so I got very assertive and I got very clear about my own boundaries. And when she asked me if what she had drawn up was a certain number of cc's, I said maybe, but I'm not allowed to answer that. And I probably said it with that tone, because I was fed up. I think she even rolled her eyes at me and sighed heavily before going down the hall to find another registered nurse. But that was one battle that I would not be losing at. That was one battle I chose to fight because my own career could have been at stake if I had done what I was not legally authorized to do and agreed with her. So number 6, choose your battles wisely. And keep yourself safe, legally, ethically, morally, and all, physically, in all the ways that you need to in the workplace. And so choose your battles and set your boundaries and use your assertive skills when it really, really matters with somebody that you don't like working with. So the last tip today Number 7 is to find some support. And I don't mean through gossip or storytelling, but I mean find other coworkers that you do like working with and focus on building those connections and encouraging those relationships. If you find that the person you don't like becomes too difficult to handle or is doing something dangerous or illegal or that could jeopardize the company or the client or other coworkers or even themselves, then it would be time to speak to someone in management or human resources and get some help with what is happening. If the situation is that bad, it could well be that you're not the only one noticing or having a hard time with it. So that last tip, number 7, is to find support. Nurture the relationships that you want to nurture. Minimize your exposure to that person if it's at all possible to do that. And get some help if you need to get some help for safety purposes. Well, that's the show today. It would be wonderful if you loved or liked or at least didn't dislike everyone that you worked with. And that's my hope for you. But if that isn't the case, I hope that you've heard something today that's useful to you and that will help you feel a little or a lot better about working with that certain someone that you don't like. You've been listening to Careers by Jen with Jen Swanson. If you like what you heard, please share this. You know, if every single person listening today shared this episode with just one friend, our audience would be twice as big just like that. And the more people we can help with our content, the better. So help out a friend and help grow our audience by sharing this show with someone you know who would benefit from the content. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that, and together we can make a difference. Until next time, take good care.